So when I try to think of discipleship, I often find it helpful to think of it in a first century Jewish context. You know, it was the greatest honor and privilege to be picked by one of the rabbis as their apprentice or disciple. It was usually before they were teenagers that they would know whether or not they made it. And so once they were picked, they would devote their whole lives to studying under the guide of the rabbi. They would become full-time students. They'd eat and drink with their rabbis, learn the interpretation of the Torah inside out, and would be entrusted to continuing the Jewish tradition amidst a pluralistic world. They'd sit at their teachers' feet and follow them wherever they'd go. It wasn't just a case of showing up to class once a week or even once a day. Being a disciple meant breathing the same air as their rabbi. Nothing was more important in their life than this. You would be constantly observing your rabbi, looking, paying attention to everything they did, and listen to everything they taught. And so this is the very same relationship Jesus was inviting his first disciples into. If you've ever wondered why the disciples dropped everything so quickly and easily to follow him, it was because they were being not just called, but chosen. Jesus' disciples were rejects who had failed to secure a spot learning from all the other rabbis, and now they had been given a chance to learn from one who was already making waves around the whole world and rumors being spread about him. And you see this relationship plays out in the Gospels. The disciples followed Jesus everywhere. They watched, they listened, they asked questions, they messed up again, they battled to understand him, and sometimes they would get realizations about what he was saying, only then to mess up again. Jesus would send them, test them, make them take risks all the time for the kingdom. But most of all, this relationship was filled with love. And at the end of the day, the disciples showed their love to Jesus through their obedience to him. And the wonderful thing about this is that we have the opportunity to experience the same discipleship relationship with Jesus today. He may not be with us in the flesh, but he promised and came through in the promise in sending his Spirit and building his church so that we may do even greater things than he did. Jesus tells us the Spirit will teach us everything we need to know as we follow him, with one another as the church. Dallas Willard had a saying that the church is for the disciples and the disciples are for the world. So some practical ways in which you can arrange more of your life around Jesus is serving in a local church, making space in your routine to read your Bible there's so many different ways to read your Bible as well. Making space to listen to God, spending time to cultivate unique spiritual practices tailored just to you. I myself really enjoy silence and solitude. Another one is inviting people over to your house for dinner around a table and being vulnerable enough to go to other people's homes. Jesus' ministry happened around the table. I like to think about it this way. Being a disciple of Jesus means being with Jesus, learning from Jesus, and then becoming like Jesus. If we focus on the first two, being with Him and learning from Him, the last one will take care of itself. And I'll end this off quoting one of my favorite theologians, Rowan Williams, who is way better at explaining discipleship than me. He says a disciple is simply a learner, and this ultimately is what the disciple learns, how to be a place in the world where the act of God can come alive.